don't see. But that's fine. Good evening, everybody. My name is Councillor Paula Fletcher, and I'm the chair of the Subcommittee on the Protection of Affordable Rental Housing. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, and I'd like to call meeting 5 to order and welcome everybody here, all of the great staff. Thank you to our clerks for this meeting. Thank you to all of the people's names I see on here that work so hard to make sure people are housed and well looked after in the city, particularly during this pandemic. And thank you to everybody joining us and all the deputants. Today's meeting is being held by video conference, and the city staff are connecting to the meeting by video conference. As you know, City Hall remains closed to the public, but we can all continue to participate electronically and can watch the meeting streamed live on YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. I would ask everybody for their patience with any delays and technical issues. And we do have a little bit of static, so if that's happening, I'm sorry about that. It is because we are all electronic all the time. The city clerk staff have connected all registered speakers to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online. You can visit the Subcommittee on the Protection of Affordable Rental Housing page at toronto.ca/council, and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting, you'll see all who's here. Members, the city clerk has provided all agenda materials at toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are also here and available to assist members with their devices. I'd really like to remind staff to keep their mics muted and their videos turned off, although I'd really like to see all of your faces, but in order to have enough bandwidth on WebEx, we're going to have to do that unless you're answering questions or speaking to the committee. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate and vote on items. Members, please keep your mics muted unless you wish to question staff or speak on an item, and ensure that your video is turned on. That way we know you're here. As part of each agenda item, I'll ask members to raise their hand or unmute their mic if they want to question staff or speak, or simply jump in. I will then create a speakers list and call on members when it's your turn to speak. I need to move closer to the mic. Thank you. When voting on an item or a motion, I ask that members ensure they turn on their video if applicable and raise their hand to indicate their vote. Members, I want to remind you, you must submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at phc@toronto.ca to help with your motions. If there's any visiting members of council attending our meeting today, I encourage you to turn on your video so that I know you're present and can give you the opportunity to ask questions of staff or to speak. This will also assist the clerk staff to record attendance for the meeting. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the committee wants to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Members, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you have an interest, please put up your hand or unmute your mic, indicate your item number and the nature of the interest. Seeing none, we need a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting on November 23rd, 2020, quite a long time ago. Councillor Perks, all those in favour? Opposed, and that's carried. So let us proceed with the agenda review now, please. Councillor Bradford has indicated that he will be a few minutes late, but he's coming to the meeting. Thank you. We've confirmed the meeting. You see who the speakers are. And we will go through the items on today's agenda. We have RH 5.1, the Tenant Advisory Committee updates and 2021-2022 work plan. We have a presentation and speakers, so we'll be holding that. RH 5.2, Tenant Support, Toronto Tenant Support Program Implementation. We have speakers for that. And last but not least, RH 5.3, Actions to Address Renovations in Toronto. and we have speakers for that, and all three items have recommendations. Thank you very much. They're all held in order to begin. I think the clerk has a meeting. We have so many speakers tonight. We are going to be changing the speaking time from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, and I'm sorry for everybody that have written your 5 minutes, but if we're going to be able to get out and get our clerks home in time and have a good discussion, that's the motion for tonight. Just getting it there, up on the screen. Thank you very much. The length of public presentation be limited to 3 minutes, and we will also at our end be mindful of the time as well as staff. So that is a motion. I'm moving that. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So our first item, the Tenant Advisory Committee updates in 2021-2022 work plan. I think we have a presentation from Ms. Hanley, who very ably supports this committee. Sherry Hanley's going to give a recommendation, and then we'll have the speakers, or our deputants. Here you are. Hello, good evening.
Hi there. I have a presentation to share, Councillor. I'm not sure if wasn't tested as we went through. Is there ability to share the screen from clerks? Or must be granted that. Hello?
Yeah, we're just getting it organized on our end, Sherry.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you. And I also just wanted to add that I'm joined tonight by 2 members of our Tenant Advisory Committee, Melissa Goldstein and Alicia Ludwig. So I'll be just giving a brief introduction in the slides and then handing it over to our 2 members who've joined us tonight to go through a few of the slides. So I'll just be giving an intro.
Good evening, Sherry. This is Hannah from the City Clerk's office. You have been given presenter privileges, so you should be able to share your screen now.
Wonderful, I see it. So now it's just a matter of figuring it out from my side here. Apologies. Okay. You see that okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Sherry.
Okay. All right. As I mentioned, I'm just going to give a very high-level presentation from my side and then hand it over to 2 of my colleagues on the Tenant Advisory Committee. So one of the items that we were asked to report back on this year was a work plan for the new Tenant Advisory Committee. And we were directed by this subcommittee back in November to create a permanent advisory committee to replace the one that we'd had temporarily, our advisory group on the protection of affordable rental housing. So this new Tenant Advisory Committee is comprised of 10 individuals, a combination of some of our past members to ensure continuity and new members. And as directed by this committee, we did a call. We sent it out through several networks and it was done through clerks, which took us a bit longer, but it ensured transparency. We had 50 applicants for the 10 positions. And we were looking for a balance between people with lived experience, advocates, legal entities, and so on. So we shortlisted the group and we did interviews asking people what their priorities were, asking what kind of initiatives they'd like to pursue. And we ended up with this really great advisory committee to build on the work that our previous advisory group did, as well as some council directions and new initiatives that folks are looking for. So on the screen here, you see the list of our folks and their affiliations. Some of them also have more than that, representing different demographic groups and ages and parts of the city as well. So this is our advisory committee, and I thank the 50 people who applied. They gave us great feedback, and also really want to thank our past members who really kicked off this work. With respect to the work plan itself, we started our advisory committee meetings at the end of March after we formalized this group. And to begin brainstorming, staff compiled a list of tenant issues. And one of the things that I do in my role supporting this group in the subcommittee is take notes from all of the deputations over the past year and a half we've been doing this. So those issues from people are kept track of and shared with the group so people know that what people have said at deputations, the past work that could be built on from the advisory committee, council directives, as well as there's been a lot of really good publications recently on tenant issues in Toronto. The group then prioritized those issues, thinking about what could have the best tenant impact, what could be tangible in the year and a half that they had to work on issues, as well as one of the things, because it's a joint working group with staff, we needed to balance things between work plans and resource availability. So with all of the issues that were identified, we've identified 3 working groups, one on the preservation of affordable rental housing, one on tenant rights and communications and advocacy, as well as one on ensuring well-maintained homes for renters. So I'm going to pass it over to Melissa Goldstein. The different tenant advisory committee members have volunteered to serve on various sub-working groups on these 3 pieces, and some of them have served on more than one. So Melissa is going to speak to the preservation of affordable rental housing, as well as tenant rights, and then Alicia Ludwig is going to give an overview of the last working group.
Thanks, Jerry. I'm really excited about working on this committee. So just about the preservation of affordable housing working group. To preserve the city's existing supply of affordable housing, it's essential that we implement a framework to proactively address all forms of predatory and illegitimate evictions and tenant displacements. This framework starts with encouraging the city to adopt a strong interventionist role in preventing illegitimate and predatory evictions, and to implement an interdivisional and proactive approach to addressing potential illegal evictions that involves working closely with tenants and tenant advocates and organizers to support tenants in keeping their homes. And this is facilitated by the better collection, use, and sharing of data. For tenants, especially low-income tenants, the threat of predatory eviction is growing in step with real estate values. In addition to the development of a renovations policy, something that we're excited to work on and that we'll be hearing more about tonight, a small sites acquisition program is an important method of protecting affordable rental housing at risk of being lost due to sale or conversion that many communities across North America have started in response to the loss of affordable rental housing due to real estate speculation. Toronto has a history of nonprofit acquisition and a few recent examples in Parkdale and Kensington Market. We're hoping to see this approach revived on a much larger scale, and we're excited to work with the city on these details. Next slide, Sherry. A major consideration in developing a response to eviction and displacement is to ensure that tenants are aware of their rights and able to exercise them. The city has just completed an eviction toolkit, and so we'll be supporting the promotion and distribution of that toolkit, as well as working to expand and distribute more resources that are related to a tenant's right to return after renovations or redevelopment, and resources related to tenant organizing. We're particularly encouraged by what the new proposed tenant support program would make possible, something again that's being talked about in this meeting later tonight. Tenants have the most success preventing eviction and displacement when they're organized and work together. While tenants across the city face many of the same challenges, neighborhoods often have unique characteristics, and some challenges are neighborhood specific. Community legal clinics and community tenant advocacy groups have demonstrated, providing neighborhood-based tenant support can be an important way to help tenants prevent eviction and displacement. We'll be looking into the development of tenant hubs across the city that support residents to learn about and exercise their rights as tenants. This will include exploring options for new initiatives like proactive eviction prevention, tenant support teams, as well as opportunities to coordinate and improve on existing tenant support programs in the city. Now I will throw it to Alicia now.
Thanks, Melissa. Alicia, are you with us now?
Yep.
Wonderful.
So a lot of our work does commingle and overlap. The group does have the work on ensuring well-maintained homes for renters. It is a portion that does see a lot of issues around there. So one of the biggest things when we have been meeting with municipal licensing and property standards, Rent Safe TO, is to test and provide feedback on the web portal that is in the process of being created, as well as provide feedback to Rent Safe TO staff on an evaluation tool based on the council direction that will update the criteria and approach for building evaluations. There are things that everything's kind of done at the same. So we're looking at how we can make things more important that are that tenants have basically said are huge issues within buildings.
Great. Thanks so much, Alicia. So I'll stop sharing my screen there, councillors. We just wanted to give you a taste of the work that we're going to be doing over this next year in cooperation with the Tenant Advisory Committee and staff from different divisions. Just one last thing that I'll add is that in addition to these items that have been identified, one of the directives from the subcommittee was for divisions that are working on tenant programs or policies for them to consult and work with proactively the Tenant Advisory Committee. So in addition to what is on the work plan, we will be working with other divisions and have already done so on key policies and programs that come through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our members of the Tenant Advisory Committee that helped you with the presentation, Ms. Hanley. And I'll welcome Councillor Bradford to the meeting. Thank you. I indicated you might be a few minutes late tonight. We did change the speakers list, so it's 3 minutes. I am a generous chair, so I won't be knocking anybody right off at the 2:59 mark. And I'd like to start with the deputations, please, and starting with Abigail Barham. And I guess we'll find out if Abigail is duly connected. I'll just list the speakers I have tonight. Abigail Barham, Monique Gordon, John Plumador, Alexandra Ruiz Vargas, Bob Murphy, Kiri Vadovelu, and Helen Chillis, and Benjamin Pula. Those are our deputants. Pardon me? For item one, yes. These are for item one. Just waiting to see if Abigail is indeed connected.
Good evening, Abigail. This is Hannah from the City Clerk's office. We've unmuted your microphone. Are you there?
While we're waiting, Brad, perhaps we could see Briar.
It's well past bedtime.
Hang in there, peeps. We're just having a little technical difficulty, but we'll get there. Okay, sorry, Abigail, we are having trouble getting you connected. We'll go to our next speaker. We'll come back to you, Abigail, and it's Monique Gordon. And if we got Monique teed up.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
The deputation is on which one? Sorry. On the renovation or on the rent safe?
It's on Tenant Advisory Committee Updates 2021-2022 Work Plan. Is that what you wanted to speak on, or did you want to speak on?
No, I want to speak on the rent safe and the renovation.
Oh, well, I think, just to ask Sherry, I think rent safe is mentioned in item number one, so.
Okay, so I'll speak on that.
Go ahead, yeah, and you know it's 3 minutes, right?
Thank you. I speak fast, so hopefully I can get it done in less than 3 minutes.
Okay.
So my name is Monique Gordon. I'm a member of the Etobicoke ACON and president of the Bergman Tenant Association. ACON is a national membership organized of low and moderate income tenants fighting for positive change. In Toronto, we have 6 chapters and 49,000 members. Now, I'm a tenant at 11 Bergman Avenue in Rexdale, and for years we have been fighting to get the most basic repairs done in our buildings that are owned by Pandale Property. Tenants need improvement to rent safe, and that's why I'm here tonight. Rent safe was originally supposed to do quite a few things, but has failed so many of us who are living in buildings where we have to fight tooth and nail to get the most basic repairs done. So about the color-coded signs, it needs to be re-implemented because if we had something like color-coded signs available to tenants, they can see where a building falls in the color-coded chart. Also, the degrading manner in which our building is, which is 11 Bergamot. Now, based on the color code, I think our building would be the worst it can be, and tenants would not want to come into an apartment building like this, so now that we will force the landlord to keep their building up to good standards where people would want to stay or live. Now, the city inspectors and the RTA Act should be revised due to the fact based on what's in the Residential Tenancy Act. It clearly states that minimum standard is required, which means some landlord can do a minimum under the city inspector eyes. That would be okay. For this reason is why landlords like Pinedale have continued to get away with not fixing things properly, hence tenants' lives and health are put at risk. Now, the walls of our building looks very sick with blisters, with water on the outside of the wall. So far, the only progress we have seen was color-coded signs. City councilors killed the signs in December last year. Tenants are tired of waiting. We're tired of paying high rent and not getting repairs and the city not taking action. So we would like to encourage you to get this program implemented. When we won in 2016, we were very excited. The city needs to commit to making rent safe work because right now, I can tell you firsthand, it is failing us. Healthy and safety buildings should be a right for tenants, but repair issues don't get fixed. The city needs to do better. Landlords are ignoring maintenance because they want tenants to move out so they can increase the rent. Not forcing property standards destroy affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to direct everyone who's going to speak about rent safe to recommendation, it's in the report, number 3, ensuring well-maintained homes, and the working group to test and provide feedback on an interactive rent safe TO web prototype that seeks to provide a portal for current and prospective tenants to access detailed information about registered apartment buildings. That's coming back in Q3 2021. And test and provide feedback on options for rent safe TO updated evaluation tool based on council direction that will update the criteria and approach for building evaluations. So I would just encourage everybody to address those 2 points. That is actually what's in front of this committee tonight. Thanks so much. John, is Abigail teed up yet, Hannah? Yes, okay. Now we'll go to Abigail because you're now on. Go for it. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Sorry for the technical issues. As the speaker said, my name is Abigail Barham. I am a member of ACORN, and I'm here this evening to talk about my experiences with Rent Safe TO. I do approve of the program. I believe that if landlords are collecting rent, they should be on top of maintaining our homes. Currently, my landlord is saying that there are a significant amount of repairs that are completely out of their hand due to COVID-19. And when pressed, I'm being told that there's quite a backlog and maintenance requests, and there's no commitment as to when these repairs will be addressed. And the city hasn't done a great job in making the landlords get the repairs done. The major source of my current issues started with a leak in April. It's now June, and it's still not being redressed. I have holes in my walls, mold, unusable kitchen and bathroom, and these burdens should not be on tenants due to inaction or slow response to the maintenance requests that we're making. I heard about the work plan for Rent Safe this year. It mentions a website. As a tenant, that's not my priority. We need to crack down on bad landlords and engage tenants. Make sure that they know what their rights are and can readily see it, the rating of their building when they either go to the office or go to the lobby, either through a sign or a sticker. I do approve of Rent Safe. I just want it to be better and work for tenants. The most vulnerable people need to know what their rights are. And if you have a program there, but no one knows about it, then it fails to have the intended impact. I've downloaded the spreadsheet on the assessment of buildings. I see my building there. The score is 82, which sounds amazing. But tenants don't know this program exists because if we could point out the actual issues, mold in the hallways, elevators that sometimes don't work, and all the number of other issues, then this can be properly redressed. It's nice to see that rating, but it's not actually showing the truth because you don't have the information because tenants can't give it to you. That's all. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks very much. We'll note that Andrew from Acorn is on the Tenant Advisory Committee who will be looking and dealing at this. So all you Acorn members here, you've got a great conduit into getting your opinions into the Tenant Advisory Committee. Next up is John Plumador. John.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Dear Committee Planning and Housing member, Tenants Network Toronto, TNT, a network of private sector tenant association presidents, endorse in principle the Tenant Advisory Committee updates and the 2021-22 work plan, RH51, 52, and 53 supplementary reports. TNT is impressed and supportive of the Tenant Action Committee and its work plan. We support the Housing TO 2030 Action Plan and the subsequent subcommittees. We like the idea of not reinventing the wheel by looking at the new Westminster BC bylaw and the transferability to a Toronto and Ontario context. We support having the Federation of Metro Tenants Association increase funding support work related to illegitimate evictions, expansion of the city's defense fund, and having city divisions working together on policies and programs that assist renters. Tenant Advisory Committee updates of 21-22 work plan says it all in advocating for approximately 50% of Toronto's population. We believe that affordable housing must be integrated into the community. We further believe we need to address poverty at the same time we address affordable housing. TNT is concerned about the impact of above guideline rent increases on housing affordability, whereby renters can face up to 9% rent increases over a 3-year period. We understand this is a provincial policy, but it needs more pushback by Ontario's largest municipality. On behalf of the Tenants Network Toronto, thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, John, for spending some time with us tonight, all the deputants that are with us. Next up, we have Alejandra.
Oh, hi, everybody.
Yes, thank you. You're on. Go for it.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope so everybody is good. So my name is Alejandra, and I am a member of ACORN. ACORN is an organization of low and moderate income that fight for change. We actually have now 6 chapters, and we are growing to 49,000 members in the city. For years, and when I say for years, and I'm not joking, many tenants in our city had struggled and is struggling right now with repairs done. ACORN has been fighting since 2014 in this issue. In 2017, we won the rent safe program, but still it's not quite what we need or what we want. A reality is a reality, meaning we know what we need because we live in the same over and over. So ACORN demands that the program had an administrative penalty by law, services standards subject to annual review, and increased fines to landlords, establish guidelines for when the Property Standards Committee can grant time, extensions on work orders, or to limit those criteria to situations that are only extraordinary circumstances. Propose policies and operating procedures, organizational changes in financing, requirements to enhance the capacity of municipal licensing and standards to undertake remedial action. In this, there has been a golden star for us, a rating system similar to the city's Dying Safe program that requires landlords to post a color code sign that displays the city rating in a prominent, publicly, and again, publicly identifiable location, along with posting the same information on the city's website and to report to the Licensing and Standards Committee. So, and finally, like Monique says very well, we are tired. We are wondering why tonight is only we're going to speak about website and evaluation tool. We wondering as well why it's taking so long when the city knows this is a hot issue for us. We need this today. We cannot wait anymore for the program. We begin to lose faith in the city. Please, can you do this now? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for your being here tonight, Alejandra. Our next debutant is Bob Murphy.
Yes, hello, can I be heard okay?
Yes?
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Bob Murphy. I'm the chair of Weston Acorn. I'm an Ontario disability recipient, and I'm a tenant in the city of Toronto. And I've also been a previous building manager, so I see it from a different lens. How much longer are we going to be kicking it around? We need this program to take some teeth and make our landlords in these companies. We need to make these companies accountable. They're not accountable. They're just laughing at us all the time because nothing's been implemented. There's nothing that's going to come back for them to take any action if we don't take action. I don't know how many more years we're going to have to kick this around. I'm here to talk about the Tenant Advisory Council work plan, which was made in consultation with many city committees or departments. On protecting housing, there are only two items, a website and an evaluation tool. RentSafe was originally supposed to do quite a few things, and here are the sunlights. I'm going to try to condense this as quick as possible because I know time has been changed. We need an administrative penalty bylaw. We have to have increased set fines, enforceable fines, which would apply to violations under the Rental Apartments Building Bylaw. We have to develop standard operating procedures, service standards for the 2018 subject to annual review for municipal standards officers, which provide targeted timelines by violation category to bring the landlords in compliance with the city bylaws from the date the order was issued, and make the standards available to the public on a city website and be transparent in the fourth quarter. Am I right? We have 3,500 buildings. We have 31 inspectors. I mean, the math is not difficult, and that's excluding the 2,100 Toronto Community Housing. I thought we were supposed to establish guidelines for when the Property Standards Committee can grant time extensions on work orders, and to limit those criteria to situations that are only extraordinary circumstances. Extraordinary circumstances. That's a laugher. Proposed policies and operating procedures, organizational changes and financing requirements to enhance the capacity of the municipal licensing and standards to undertake remedial action. A rating system. I mean, we have to get these signs back. It's why those signs are up there in the first place. Why they are, every building is reading green.
You're going to have to wind up, Bob. Going to have to wind up, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a last couple of remarks?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Nice to hear from you. Next is Kiri Vadivelu from Scarborough Acorn. Please go ahead. Are you on the line, Kiri? Hannah, is Kiri on there? Yep.
Through the chair, that speaker is connected, and I have unmuted their mic.
Great. You're on, Kiri. We can't hear you, though. Is it possible to go to the next speaker and then see if we can get that sorted out with Kiri? And that's Helen Chillas.
Through the chair, that speaker is connected to the meeting but has not connected their audio.
Okay. Helen, you have to connect your audio in order for us to hear you when you make your deputation. I'll give you a second to do that. And perhaps Benjamin is connected audio and connected to the meeting. Yes, he is? Okay. Benjamin, please.
Hello, thank you. At the very last moment here, I decided to give a deputation. It's a pity that my camera isn't on, so you can't see how tired I am.
We can't see anybody, so just go ahead.
All right. Well, I want to start by there's a ton of feedback happening, but I want to start by thanking Monique, Abigail, Alejandro, and Bob for their comments regarding RentSafe. I'm a member of the Tenant Advisory Committee, and on August 25th of 2020, RentSafe TO came to my building and issued 27 property standards orders. As of this time, 7 out of 27 have been completed. So it's been 10 months about. 9 out of 27 were closed but were not completed, which is a third of the items. There's a problem with RentSafe, and I'm going to tie this to the work plan right below where we talk about how we're going to work on a portal, how we're going to update the evaluation tool. It says, quote, discussions are taking place between staff and this working group to identify other areas of collaboration with MLS, ... to address issues related to well-maintained homes for renters. I'm looking forward to working with RentSafe TO and MLS to push the issues presented by some of the deputants forward. I'm worried that there is a lack of urgency, that there is a disconnect between the urgency that you can hear from the people that gave deputations and from people like myself who can't seem to get things fixed. And I have to assume that myself, as a member of the Tenant Advisory Committee, as someone who is in constant contact with RentSafe TO, if I can't get things fixed, if I can't get them to enforce the property standards orders that they have made orders for, I really worry about what we are subjecting a lot of renters to. And I just want to say that I guess what I would love to see from this committee, it seems to me that RentSafe is working on the items that they're working on because of council direction. What I would like to see from this committee and then from council is direction to just enforce Chapter 629, to enforce property standards orders, explicit direction to do so. I think might go a long way. Thank you.
I'll just have a question. Did you not discuss this at the Tenant Advisory Committee?
I have, and it's something that we are in discussion with,
Okay.
but I want to make sure that there are, we've all read enough Shakespeare to know that not simply saying the facts out loud can lead to a lot of problems. So I'm just saying the facts out loud. And
No, I understand that. I'm just asking how, if you're able to discuss that there, because you can bring some of these recommendations forward. That would be good. Okay.
We need it's a dialogue. We need a willing partner on the other side.
Well, you're on a tenant advisory committee. You have a very willing partner, so I'm presuming that there'll be some good discussion on this issue there. And thank you very much for being here tonight and being on the committee. That's great. Thanks very much. I'm just going to go and see if we have Helen or Kiri on the line, please. Hannah, is either of them able to make it break through? Oh, Kiri, I think we're going to be able to hear you if you'd like to speak to us. You there? Don't seem to be able to get her. Pardon me, and Helen, are you able to hear me? And we'd love to hear you.
Yes.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. You have your time, please start.
Oh, okay, because I thought I was having audio problems.
No,
Well,
we hear you, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. My name is Helen Chillis, and actually I was a former member of this subcommittee. I would like to just add to what everyone is saying. I'm the chair of our tenant group at 1501 Woodbine Avenue. And in fact, we have been at this since 2013. And in fact, when I was a board member with the Federation of Tenant Associations, I was actually co-chairing the Tenant Action Committee. And my big project was licensing landlords, which somehow morphed into the Rent Safe TO program. It's very disappointing. We are now in 2021, and we're still talking about fixing the Rent Safe program. There is an urgency. Our building is falling apart. When you walk in, it looks relatively clean until you start going into our laundry rooms and our shoot rooms. And if anyone ever walked into our compactor room in the basement, by which even a bylaw officer saw thousands and thousands of flies, it was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And there are staff that are working around this. I continue to ask staff if it's been cleaned. No, but they take the time to clean out apartments, empty apartments, so they can rent. Chapter 629, I keep repeating myself. It's very, very clear. No one is allowed to rent, offer to rent, or collect rent if property standards are not up to code. Now, our building also has something called Prohibition Orders. These were issued in 2017 by the Ontario Divisional Courts. Many of the bylaw officers who come to our building aren't aware of these prohibition orders. And even when the prohibition orders are emailed to city staff, we're still waiting. We had a building audit back in 2009. Over 220 items, deficiencies listed, less than 5% completed. File closed. We were the first building who pushed the City of Toronto to conduct second building audits. The same items came up. They had to go to court, prohibition orders. The owner is not allowed to not be up to standards, period. There are no more timelines left. There are no more deadlines left. They are to go straight to court. We haven't gone back to court. In 2017, our building received a 78% passing grade while we were still in the middle of construction. Our underground parking and our balconies passed by 5 out of 5, but yet the work was not completed. Then in 2019, we passed by 72%. Funny how that happened, because we did manage to bring back some executives from MLS, some managers, who ended up writing up a whole slew of orders in 2020.
Sure,
Again,
Helen, you're going to have to finish up, please. This is
okay.
Yep, thank
So
you.
this is just an example. We can no longer wait. There is a matter of discretion, lack of tenant involvement, and that needs to change, because otherwise we are not going to have anywhere to live. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Helen. I'm just wondering if you have Kiri on. Yes, so Kiri is with us now. We've got that organized. And I'm just going to get that going here. Reset. Kiri, welcome, and you have your time.
Thank you very much.
Oh, great.
Appreciate
We
that.
can hear you, finally. Very good. Welcome.
Great. Thanks again. It's a great opportunity to speak and share my concerns. I'm an ACON member from Scarborough, and I think my other ACON members really spoke loud on the issue that we are all facing. It doesn't matter which part of the city we speak to, we all have something in common, that our buildings are not up to date. We all have the same problems, and we are in the city. And this is very hurtful that we are in a city, in a world-class city, Toronto, and we are talking about this. And if we are going to be talking about these issues in 2021, we are not going to be going and advancing further and making our working class people's lives any better. I think we are going to be pushing them down and silencing them, and that is what's happening. And this is not acceptable, and that shouldn't be happening in this country. And I don't know why that is so okay. And it is okay to silence working people, and our struggles are not going to be highlighted or not going to be addressed. So it's important. It's important that our councillors who are in the lead to address the concerns of our citizens, our tenants, to pay attention and to do something about it, and not to just do a lip service. And I don't mean to be putting it that way, but unfortunately, it's a frustration getting into my mouth. It's we've been waiting so long, and it's just. Again and again, we are getting words and assurance, but nothing in reality. What's happening? There's no strict enforcement, and when there's something that is going to be coming in support of tenants, and that is going to be either delayed or that's not going to be even happening. For example, the color-coded sign, that issue was even voted against, and it's a delay of good things for the tenants, and it's always neglected, and that's something has to change in our city. And it's again, Rent Safe is a good program, it's a good way forward, but that's not good enough if there's no enforcement, it's backed up. So it is we tenants, we cannot penalize landlord, only city can. So that's why we urge the city to do the right thing and to protect the tenants. Enforcement, engagement, and transparency. These are something that we need to do in action, not in words. And it doesn't matter how many websites we create. It doesn't matter how many things we write. If tenants are oppressed, they have no voice. And right now, ACON is doing everything they can so that we all members are united and we have a voice. And if you're not going to address our voice, if you're not going to hear us, nobody else is going to hear us. And we are sidelined this way. And this is something that we really want as the city to do something. And please do it. Do it now.
Thank you.
Do it now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. That's the end of our deputants. And I'm wondering if there are any questions of staff from either Councillor Bradford or Councillor Perks on this. No, for the work plan? No, thank you very much. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this? No? I do. I have a couple of motions here. Thank you. Pardon? Do you want to mute for a second? Oh, do I want to mute? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I will speak. I do have a motion. Pardon? Oh, coming up. That there's this eviction prevention toolkit that has been developed to be able to send 10 copies to every city councillor's offices and the offices of all ministers of parliament and ministers of provincial parliament in Toronto, and also let them know where the URL is so they can download that and do it themselves. Because this is one of the things that we charged the staff and also our tenant advisory committee with, in having materials that are very relevant around evictions and one-stop shopping. So that would be great to have that. I also just want to thank our new committee, thank all the members who were on the previous committee, and now all of the 10 new members who are on the actual established tenant advisory committee. And it's been a very long time since the city has had official tenant advisory committee, and that's what this is, and that's what you are all on. And I'm sure the staff are very appreciative of being able to work with those of you with all the experience that you have. And the work plan is an interesting one. It's a great start. I think being able to text is pretty important. Nobody mentioned that in their deputations, but many of the tenants that I know really will benefit from being able to text rather than having to use any data. And that is a huge step to get that information in that way. I think we shouldn't underestimate the importance of that. And then the other things that are happening, there's a lot of really interesting things that's in the work plan. You've been meeting a lot, bi-weekly from March to May. I think that's a tremendous amount of work, and I'm very happy with the work that you've been doing and in connecting with other tenants. I think everybody's heard tonight, this is the protection of affordable housing. It's not necessarily the rent safe committee. That's going through MLS, but ensuring that the housing that we do have is up to a good standard. So I know that Ms. Hanley is here and she's listening, and she'll be discussing that with MLS staff, because one of the goals will be just to give the feedback on how well the system's working that we had set up. And let me just leave it at that. I'm sure we'll have many other discussions on many other things, but I think that that is a very good start for the work plan for this year. Anybody else? No? Then I'll just move that motion. And all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Let's go to item 2, which is the Toronto Tenant Support Program implementation. We have one speaker there, and that is you, Helen. I'm sure you're still on the line. Is Helen still there? Good.
Yes, I am.
Whenever you're
Hello.
ready, Helen, I'll start your time. There we go.
Okay. Well, firstly, before I begin, I also wanted to congratulate all the new members of the committee, the tenant committee. Congratulations. And yes, you've done a lot of good work. Now, as far as the tenant, let's see here, the defense fund and the support programs, it all looks great on paper. The one thing that hasn't been considered, that as an organizer, it does get expensive to be able to print material, we're looking at putting together a website, et cetera, et cetera. It would be nice if there was just a little bit of funding available. So not just supports, but in order that we can, in fact, implement the supports. And since we only had 5 minutes, our 5 minute was cut off, I just wanted to bring up a couple of things about the building evaluations and the work plan that the committee is currently working on. I would like the committee to also consider licensing landlords, not just in large apartments, but I think it's important. We have discussed this, and I know it would mean that we would need more staff with the city, but it's a business. To be a landlord, it's a business. Whether you're renting a basement, you're renting anywhere at all, it is a business. Even the city of Mississauga, in order to have a basement unit, you have to go through a whole lot of inspections. I know that that's been kind of put into place, but there is a difference between the rent safe program and licensing businesses. I think it's important to differentiate between the two. I also think that there also needs to be a complete review of Chapter 354 apartment buildings. There seems to be some kind of, I'm not sure, I've done as much digging as I can and gone through past meetings, city council meetings. Section 354, subsection 3.7, state of good repair plan. It says here that subsection D, an owner or operator shall provide a copy of the state of good repair plan to any tenant or prospective tenant within 60 days of receiving a request. Now, again, I did as much research as I could, re-listened, re-watched on YouTube, a lot of meetings, and I think that this may have been a clerical error. And if not, it needs to be reviewed, because if I'm a prospective tenant, I can't wait 60 days to decide whether or not to move into my new home. And in addition to that, when it comes to appeals, we just went through an appeal. The landlord did not provide notice to the tenants here in my building. I happened to just stumble upon notice of the appeal through just when I was just checking out a couple of things online. I was able to make a presentation, but I only had a couple of days. This was
Helen, could you just finish
proceeding.
up, please? Helen, could you finish up, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
And also, okay. So if we can perhaps add those items, and also the MLS presentations on the Rent Safe program, perhaps those should be open to the public, and the documents at least made online for the public to view, so we can get going and move a little quicker on that issue.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. I will take this into committee now and ask if there are any questions. Oh, I'm looking for members, and I'm looking in the room for you and Gordon, Brad, and you're not, you're at your homes. I'm here. No questions? Any speakers? No? No? I have a motion here that part of this, it really looks at the amount of support that our tenant organizations are getting. Oh, sorry, I have to read that first. And that would be City Council direct the General Manager, Shelter Support and Housing Administration to include funding for the Toronto Tenant Support Program in the 2022 budget submission for consideration by the Budget Committee in the 2022 process. Because identified in the report is the request for an extra $600,000 to look at renovictions and being able to have somebody on the end of a phone, somebody there that can respond. I would say that with the current budget that is available for tenant issues and responding, it's not all that much for the great work that's being done. People are doing a lot of heavy lifting with very little funds, and this would be very helpful. So I'm sure that this would be welcome. It's in one of the recommendations, but it's not an actual recommendation. So this way, we will formalize that request from this committee, understanding how important it is to support tenants and for the city to do our small part. And I will say it's a small part because it's not a lot of money, but what it is important seed money for the work of our great tenant organization. So I'd like to move that. And with that, I'll just call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Item as amended, all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Next up, we have the actions to address renovictions in Toronto. We have quite a few speakers here, and I'm hoping everybody's now able to be hooked up without any trouble, because we're well into the meeting. So I'm going to call the first deputant, and that is Patricia Edwards. I wonder if she's online, Hannah.
I'm here.
Okay,
Can you hear
great.
me?
Thank you. I'm going to start your time. There you go.
Excellent. My name's Patricia Edwards. I'm a member of Etobicoke North Acorn. Acorn is a community union made up of low and moderate income people, and we have been active since 2004, which is almost 2 decades, fighting the same issues that we are facing today, like affordable housing, healthcare, transit, internet, and more. We are happy to be able to speak to the subcommittee tonight about renovictions, since it is something I am fighting in my building at the moment. We were supposed to get out of our tight-knit community by the end of March. The landlord had till the end of April to reestablish the N13 and issue an L2, which he has. So thank you to Toronto and its tenants tenant defense fund, which we were able to obtain a $10,000. Sorry about this. $10,000.
Okay, Patricia, just take your time. Take your time, please.
No problem. Yeah. $10,000 to fight Mr. Klein, who is a $1 million investor. So I thank Toronto for developing that fund and the council who made sure that that fund went through so that we are able to fight. I feel that the landlords treat the 3,000, almost 4,000 people who are in the city who are demanding affordable housing like chump change. And I would be advised that the city take care of the chump change, because the rest, the 2,500 people can take care of themselves, which they are. So it shouldn't be a great and difficult task to do. Right now, we are not leaving. We are going to fight this L2. I don't think we're worth, I think we're worth a lot more than $5,000. The landlord did bump it up to $12,500, but that's to be split for the household. What if there's 4 people in the household? How am I supposed to know I can guarantee rent? We're not working. Everybody's out of a job. I'm working the restaurant business, so until it's like 80 to 100% sit down, I don't have a job. It's not coming. So to have this established during this time is crazy. This is why Acorn is calling for the city to implement the measures from the Westminster BC government and making these multi-million-dollar landlords take care of these tenants, because these are your people. It's like I'm not being consumer protected. I'm the consumer, I'm renting the place. So somewhere along there, consumer protection isn't being taken place either. They're saying that the government doesn't put implications, so we're going to go hung-go. And we're going to do whatever we want unless the government puts the implications. Now, since they're not, we're not going to do it for ourselves. So we really have to get on this and follow up and implement licenses, since they want to call themselves a business. From what I know, businesses own licenses.
I'm going to have to ask you to wind up now, please.
All right, like I said, so Toronto's fight and our fight across Canada is for healthier homes, not facelifts on buildings, and stop giving them more money to do whatever they want with.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening to me.
And thank you very much for fighting so hard for your building and for everybody in it. Thank you. Next up, Barry Marsh. Barry, are you with us?
Hello. Hello. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please proceed.
Okay. My name is Barry Marsh, and I'm a member of Etobicoke Acorn. And as you know, Acorn is a community organization that fights for low-income people. We are pleased that the city is speaking more about renovation, because it is a huge problem in Etobicoke North, as you hear. Since November 2020, we have been fighting to stop the renovation of our neighbors at 25 Leduc Drive and 2 Torban Drive. Michael Klein and Family Properties purchased 3 buildings, all within 50 feet of one another. And the day after purchasing 2 of the buildings, they sent notices to tenants that they had to be out by March 31st, 2021, renovating 20 families after offering a buyout of $5,000. To truly understand what is happening at Leduc and Torban neighborhood, you have to visit. On entering the neighborhood, you will notice a number of triplexes, fourplexes, and low-rise buildings. This is a working-class neighborhood, and some of the tenants have been living there for over 40 years. This is a neighborhood with affordable housing, homes, which are targeted by predatory landlords who use the excuse of major renovation work needing to be done, and when in reality, they just want the tenants out to increase rent and build luxury apartments. And this is happening all over Toronto. Acorn members have seen an increase of tenants joining our meetings that are being renovated by predatory landlords. When landlords do this, we lose that affordable housing forever, and they displace entire communities. With the housing crisis and pandemic, we have to do everything to keep tenants housed, and preserve affordable housing. ACTO, which is Advocacy Center for Tenants Ontario, show that between 2006 and 2016, units in Toronto, which rented for $1,000 per month and under, declined by 36%. Units between $1,000 and $1,500 per month increased by 51%. Units over $1,500 increased by 323%. This shows the rapid decline of affordable homes. Acorn is asking the city to investigate replicating New Westminster's renovation bylaw in Toronto. This bylaw disincentivizes renovations and incentivizes the maintenance of purpose-built rental buildings. The bylaw also licenses landlord in New Westminster, something Acorn has been asking for. This licensing system works as an effective ban on renovations because it takes out any financial incentive landlords have to renovate tenants. This is done by providing clear requirements.
Barry, I'm going to have to ask you to wind up, please.
Okay, so we're actually asking that the same bylaw that is in Westminster be done in Toronto. And lastly, we're asking the city to document and list all affordable rental properties across the city. And whenever they are listed for sale, the city should have first right of acquisition in order to preserve affordable housing stock.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. I'm going to call on Reen. You'll tell me, Rena, how to spell. Rhea?
It's Rhea Rennie.
Rhea Rennie. Sorry, I didn't say your last name properly. Please proceed.
Oh, that's fine.
Yep. Go ahead.
Right. Thank you. My name is Rhea Rennie, and I'm a member of Acorn and the co-chair of the Etobicoke Acorn chapter. It's great being able to speak to you all tonight about so many important issues, and we're happy the city is looking into renovictions. As you've heard, our members in Rexdale have been fighting since last year to stop the renoviction of their homes by Michael Klein and Family Properties. We're here today to stress how important and urgent this needs to be addressed because renovictions are on the rise. Working class tenants are being displaced because there are basically no protections when it comes to renovictions. Right now, it's way too easy for landlords and developers to displace tenants, and we all know housing is a human right. Yet, even during the pandemic, tenants are fighting to stay housed. There should be no permit approvals to predatory landlords like Family Properties. Their only goal is to get long-term tenants out so they can raise the rent and make more profit. Before the vacant units were even finished construction at Leduc and Terbolton, they were being listed on rental websites for over $1,000 more. The landlord is also adding more bedrooms and bathrooms. Doesn't this affect the zoning for these two buildings? We've been calling the city to try to find answers about this, but it's still unclear. If that's the case, then the city should be stepping in. And that's why we're here today, to highlight what we are asking the city to do. There needs to be a no displacement policy. The city can use existing powers to create new tools to stop displacement. A tenant relocation assistance policy should be put in place. So before the landlord is able to get a tenant to move out, they must find them a new place to rent if the tenant requests it. Also, we'd like to see, if needed, rent top-up payments. So if there's a gap between the rent for the new unit and the existing rent level, that can be filled. Also, there should be financial support with moving and the right to return to the new development at the same rent. Major financial penalties should also be handed out if the right to return is interfered with. And there should be a public register of tenant buyouts to monitor the sale of rental buildings and inform tenants of their rights. A landlord and tenant registry should be put in place to track displacements during new unit construction and to ensure the right to return is enforced. And like I said earlier, no public funds or permit approvals should be given to predatory landlords. Having a renovation bylaw like the one BC Acorn won in New Westminster in 2019 would be amazing to have here in Toronto. This is a bylaw that is clearly effective since it bans renovictions by taking out any financial incentive landlords have to renovate tenants. This is done by providing clear requirements that the landlord must adhere to before any evictions can take place. Developers need to obtain all permits from the city that are needed to do the renovation. This includes plumbing permits, development permits, heritage alteration permits, and building permits. This takes time and informs the city that renovations and potential evictions are taking place at a local apartment building. Once all permits are obtained and it's proven that tenants must vacate in order for the renovations to take place, the landlord must do either of the following steps to ensure that tenants are not displaced.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
All right. This renovation bylaw sets a precedent for other cities to follow, and we hope to see Toronto do the same, since we know it can be done. We look forward to hearing how the city will address renovations, because frankly, we can't sit and let this happen anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question for you, because you are, you said, from Etobicoke North, and I'm wondering if you've had any luck of any kind with the provincial member of parliament there in getting some of these asks. Have you been able to meet with your member of provincial parliament? Have you had any traction that they're willing to make some changes around N13s and N12s, or have a tenant fund to fight renovictions? And I'm asking this in a serious way.
Unfortunately, the member of provincial parliament has not been communicating with us at all, even though we've reached out on numerous occasions. That MPP is Doug Ford, and we've received no response from him, to the point where we took action and we went to his constituency office. We did an action at his home last fall. We went to his home and asked him to commit to looking into affordable housing and the issues surrounding it, but we never got a response. We only got closed doors and anger.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Appreciate knowing that you've taken steps, even if you didn't get very far. Thank you. Next speaker we have is Kiri Vadivelu. Kiri, you're back up for your 3 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate that again. I'm Giri from Scarborough, another Scarborough Acorn member. I do want to restate my previous Acorn members stated. That we need the same strong bylaw as the BC that protects tenants, and it is already done. So it is not going to be reinventing. They will be going to be working implementing that's already working, and it's working well for the tenants, and that need to come in to our city, and landlords need licenses. And if everybody needs a license to have a business, but for some reason, landlords have authority over how many in my building alone, over 140 families, and they don't need to have a license, and that is not acceptable, and that's why they're able to get away with so many lack of repairs, lack of maintenance, and not even following the regulations that are already in place. So those are core issues our Acorn members are bringing up, is because it is not like the renovation is happening in Rexdale and it's not happening in Scarborough. No, I'm anticipating a renovation to come to Scarborough in my building as well. It is coming. I could foresee that, and it was a great tenant unity that defended evictions in my building. Right now, there was during the COVID time there was an eviction that came in, and all the tenants united and fought back, and no one was evicted in this pandemic. And if these tenants is having to form a union and stand together to defend evictions and force landlord to negotiate with tenants, I think we are already too late. We are talking about yesterday, the day before's problems. The policies that we are talking about should have implemented before COVID. Now, COVID is not the problem. It just exposed the problems in our system. That we need to implement the good policies that's already working in other provinces to our city, and that is the only way forward for our tenants. And we have to understand that I went through the landlord-tenant board, and they expected me to negotiate with my landlord on my own. Well, in my experience, that was not possible. I had to have duty counts. I had to get the help from the community legal clinic, FMTA, ACON, and so many other organizations stood in line and fought together to get a negotiation that protected my home. And it is again, I was not able to negotiate on my own. So this goes to show that landlord-tenant board is just looking the other way. It's simply looking the other way. Oh, landlord.
Thank you, Kiri.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Monique Gordon.
Hi again. Like many of us have said tonight, we are very pleased to see the city looking into addressing renovation in Toronto. In my neighborhood, we have seen any renovation firsthand at the Duke and Toblerton Drive. It is shameful to see how landlord treats tenants. They don't see us as people, just as obstacles into making maximum profit. The rise of renovation in our community is very concerning. We have seen in our chapters and in our local meeting that tenants are being intimidated by developers and landlords to leave their homes. Many times, like we have seen in our Rexdale chapter, landlords send notices and tell tenants that if they don't accept the cash offer, they'll be evicted. Tenants are often scared and do not know their right when it comes to issues like this. Landlords shouldn't be able to bully people into giving up their homes, but it happens all the time. Tenants have a legal right to a hearing, but many of them do not have this opportunity because they do not know that they can do this and think that they have to move out. We need a renovation by law, and the city has the power to do this. Replicating what was won in New Minister would protect so many tenants in Toronto from displacement. Landlords and developers are destroying the affordable living we already have. When a landlord renovates tenants, they double or sometimes triple the rent. We all know we are in a major housing crisis right now, and losing affordable housing is the exact opposite of what tenants need right now. Not only the tenants having to do the stressful task of fighting tooth and nail to stay housed, they're also facing a housing market that they will never be able to afford if they have to move. It's important to note that renovation not only evicts tenants from their home, but they also evict entire communities. I can talk a little bit about where I live at 11 Bergamot. Our building is in a dire state. It's fallen down. 140 families, units in one building, and there are 4 buildings plus 60 townhouses. Our building is the worst. They refuse to fix anything. They refuse to put on an awning for 4 years. They refuse to do landscaping in 11 Bergamot and do it in all the other buildings. Right now, if any city inspector come in, they turn a blind eye to all the walls. When they come in, they just take the wall left and right. It's like it has sores. I call the city inspector for a leak 4 weeks now. Guess what? The leak is still there. The big hole, the gaping hole is still there. I told the property manager, so you guys need to start to change the plumbing system. This is why all the internal walls are cracking up. It's swelling. They're refusing. We're begging people. We need some sort of help. Tenants are tired of it. Tired. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to help you out, Monique, if you let me know where you live. Call my office tomorrow, please. Thank you.
I will.
Thank you.
No problem.
Alejandra Ruiz Vargas.
Thank you. Thank you again. So I love the comment of Councillor Fletcher. You had a very good sense of humor. You know why Ford doesn't answer us? Because we are not rich. When we won the lottery, maybe he answered us. Anyway, so renovations, we are here for that. My name is Alejandra, and I am an ACOR member. ACOR is an organization of low and moderate income fighter for change. And we are very proud that we grow to 49,000 people in the city, and now we have 6 chapters in the city. And here to talk about the awful situation that is happening for too many tenants in the city. I'm here to talk about renovations. Renovations are something that we need to stop now. Renovations have brought more pain and suffering to tenants in the city. Like we don't have enough with the skyrocket rents, the lack of affordable housing, the repairs not done, then IGIs, and now COVID. So, and now renovations, of course. ACO has been supporting our members that are facing renovations, but we need the help from the city to stop renovations. And as Ria spoke very nice about what ACO has asked to the city to support the things that we want in BC that have been working marvelous. But let me tell you, we're not only a bunch of people that make noise and go and call and fill your phones with our calls or send you emails. We as well did some research, and we found that in a quote from Toronto Star about this gentleman, a lawyer, John Mascarin, is a partner at Toronto law firm called Eyre and Berlis. He says the two provinces, meaning BC and Toronto, are in too different in terrain. He noted that Ontario's municipal act and the city of Toronto are very similar in structure to British Columbia's community charter. Mascarin say there is actually many parts of Canada with laws similar to those of BC. I can certainly see why there is interest in this case across the country. Mascarin said most of the jurisdictions across Canada are probably quite similar to the BC community charter, so you can probably see these renovations bylaws popping up through the country. So this means that it's doable. So please, we need that you protect us. This used to be a very decent city, you know, to live here. It was a pleasant city, but it's becoming like a war for profit. If you make profit, you can live in the city, but if you don't make it, so you need to move out. Please protect us without no policy. We are going to vanish from the city very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alejandra, and for your research. It's really impressive. Thank you. Next is Firdaus Bilimoria. If you are on the line, Firdaus.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. We can, please.
Perfect. Okay, my name is Firdaus Bilimoria. I'm a resident at 15 Shalimar Boulevard in the Forest Hill area, and which is managed by Red Pine Apartments. I'm also a member of ACON. ACON, as we have heard before, is an organization that, among other things, helps tenants in fighting for their rights and helps equalize the power imbalance against greedy and predatory landlords. There's a common thread to everything that we have heard. And before I talk about my building issues, I just want to say something for context, is that my building is owned by a landlord who owns Red Pine Apartments and a sister company called Firdaus Real Estate that previously owned a building that was sold late last year to Michael Klein of Family Properties, and which was mentioned by another of the speakers as a very aggressive renovation proponent. So that tells you how serious this issue is. Tenants in my building have experienced a somewhat modified renovation strategy that is essentially designed to subvert rent controls and landlords' maintenance obligations. First, maintenance is not done, which results in significant tenant hardship. This often forces tenants to move out, who are then replaced by tenants at a much higher rent. And this is apparently allowed based on landlord performing some perfunctory renovation work in the apartment, and this is then approved by the LTB. For context, there's an example. I've been a tenant in my building for only 6 years, and new incoming tenants are paying more than 150% of their tenants of the rent that I currently pay. So obviously, there's a major financial incentive to landlords to do this kind of behavior. the city's inspection process itself is a problem, and I say that as someone who has filed multiple 311 reports with varying degrees of findings. The process is seriously lacking in teeth and appropriate powers and the authority to bring a long offending landlord into compliance with city standards. Also, in some cases, I've seen city inspectors take a very benign and landlord-friendly view of the transgressions or the failures to meet standards. This issue of renovation is tied to affordable housing, and from anecdotal evidence, I've seen that maintenance failures and renovations often target the most vulnerable amongst us, such as seniors, low-income tenants, and new immigrants. And it is very obvious this is a
Can you start to
widespread
wind up, please,
issue.
Firdaus? Thank you.
Sure. So in conclusion, I would say that we need more rigorous enforcement of standards, and we need mechanisms to hold landlords accountable for meeting their obligations and standards, and also to protect the vulnerable tenants from aggressive, profit-motivated actions like renovations and maintenance failures. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next deputant is Beulah Paul. I just want to thank everybody for being so clear about renovations, the importance of getting it right and getting moving on it. Thank you. Beulah, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Can you hear
you
me?
can start. Yes, we can. Thank you. Yep.
Okay. My name is Beulah Paul, and I'm a member of East York Acorn. Thank you, everyone, the member of the council that's present, for agreeing to lend an ear to our causes. The important issue at hand is renovation, as we've heard over and over and over the past half an hour or more. As Toronto's housing crisis grows, more and more working class homes are being lost to gentrification. Tenants live under constant threat of displacement as developers buy up as much real estate as they can. Loose provincial rent control laws provide incentives to landlords and developers to push tenants out so they can increase rents and maximize their return on investment. This is why the city needs to save the affordable housing stock we already have and protect working class tenants from predatory landlords. We can do this by having a renovation bylaw like that in New Westminster. That is why Acorn is demanding that the city create the following 8 policies. First, a no displacement policy by using existing powers to create new tools to stop displacement. Secondly, a tenant relocation assistance policy, that is to help find a new place to rent if requested, rent top-up payments if needed to bridge the gap between rent for the new unit and existing rent level, provide financial support with moving and the right to return to the new development at the same rent. Thirdly, major financial penalties to be doled out if the right to return is interfered with. Fourthly, publicize registry of tenant buyouts. And monitor the sale of rental buildings and inform tenants of their rights. Fifth, a landlord and tenant registry to track displacement during construction and ensure the right to return is enforced. Sixthly, no public funds or permit approvals to predatory landlords. 7, we must act now. The city has the power to do it, and we look forward to seeing
Thank you,
how
Beulah.
we will address. Yes.
We're going to have to wrap up.
No problem.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. I'm going to call next on Mitchell Choi. Mitchell, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Great. Please start. Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Mitchell Choi. I am a member of ACORN. We are a member-run union, and I'm here today to talk about why we need to put in place legislation that's already been mentioned and is already pre-existing in our country, that we need to expand and put in place more protections and I think sterner regulations on the end of landlords. And we need to see a lot more protection and a lot more availability of quote unquote affordable housing in our city. By the very concept of it, affordable should be housing for everybody, especially with housing and shelter being a human right. The policy that they did in BC had a no displacement policy. And we can use existing powers and create new tools to stop displacement. We need developers to obtain all the permits they need to do a renovation. This includes plumbing permits, development permits, heritage alteration permits, and building permits. This takes time and informs the city that renovations and potential evictions are taking place on a local apartment building. We have landlords blatantly lying about why they are evicting tenants, and then weeks to months later going exactly against the kind of excuses they made, whether it be locating a family member and then doing massive renovations and displacing who knows how many families, who knows how many individuals have been adversely thrust into terrible housing conditions for the personal profit and perverse incentive of landlords. We need the permits to be declared ahead of time. We need transparency, and we need follow-up, and we need accountability on the behalf of our civil services to avoid these kind of disruptions. And just to read off a few more of the kind of policy we need to put forward, we need rent top-up payments to bridge the gap between rent for new units and existing rent levels. We need more affordable rent and rent geared to income, and to be a more standard agreement in our city. We're going to have to
wrap up shortly. Thank you.
And finally, I think that we need to put a public register of tenant buyouts. We need for there to be the right of first refusal when it comes to the changing of hands of these real estate companies. Thank you so much for this time. Thanks.
So just let me ask you one question. You want a record of tenant buyouts. So when somebody has received an N12 or N13, you'd like a record that they have had a buyout from the landlord, so we all can know what that looks like, or how many people have received a payment. Is
Yes,
that what you
I think
mean?
that kind of.
Pardon?
Yes, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
Okay, I have next up Sheila Prosper. Sheila, are you with us?
To the chair, that speaker has connected to the meeting but has not connected their audio.
Okay, Sheila, we're going to go on to the next person while you get hooked up with the great city clerks here, get your audio going, and we'll go to Rob McBean. I'm going to ask you, Hannah, is Rob hooked up? He's all ready to go. Rob, are you ready to roll?
Yes, I am,
Okay.
Councillor Fletcher.
Please, you're on.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fletcher. It's been a great honor getting to speak to you today because it gives me a chance to congratulate you for the amazing work you did at 279 Woodfield Road last year. What you did there made a big difference to a lot of people. So my name's Rob McBean, and I'm a member of Scarborough Acorn. Now, Toronto and Vancouver trade the top place for the most unaffordable housing in North America back and forth. So a small municipality out west decided that enough was enough, and they were going to actually protect tenants from predatory landlords. So what are we waiting for? Do we really want Toronto tenants to be nothing more than cash machines for property owners and real estate investment trusts? Cap REIT makes $1,000 in private profit every minute of every day from their tenants. It's time for the City of Toronto to step up and say, we're keeping what affordable housing we have. A real renovation bylaw will benefit almost every single person in Toronto. Less homelessness, more disposable income to spend on local businesses, people not being displaced out of their homes, forced out of their neighborhoods. All of this is possible, and we have the power to make it happen. Is there anyone who would be harmed by stopping renovictions in Toronto? Well, maybe real estate speculators, multimillionaires, billionaire landlords and REITs, they might not benefit. But do we need corporate landlords sucking every drop of value out of our community? Let's take that first big step towards building a Toronto where everyone can live in safe, healthy, affordable housing. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Rob. Appreciate you being here tonight. And I'm wondering if Sheila is not, she can't get on. Okay, we're going to, pardon me?
To the chair, I believe that speaker has connected their audio, so I will unmute them now.
Is that Sheila? She's good to go? Okay, Sheila, we're all ready for you. Thank you. You can start.
Okay, hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to listen to what. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Sheila Prosper. I'm a member of ACON, and ACON is a community organization with low and moderate income people fighting for change. So we are here tonight to talk about renovation. Affordable housing is very important. Many working people are spending way too much money on their salary on rent. The city is building some affordable housing, but not a lot. And we are losing more affordable housing than we are building in per year. This is because predatory landlords are evicting tenants, raising the rent, which remove the affordable housing. ACON members are fighting to preserve it, but we can only do so much. So we need you, the City Council, to take stronger action to protect our homes. We would like to see by law, like what was one in the new Westminster, a business license for landlord that can be used to protect tenants from renovating. If something isn't done soon, the city will become even more unaffordable and tenants will be living in fear every day. There will be sacrifice of losing the homes because landlords decide they could make more money from a new tenant or could make more money selling the house if it's empty. Tenants are 50% of the city. We deserve an affordable city, and we hope that all will do everything you can to make this happen. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Sheila, and thank you for the encouragement. We can't do it without you. Next, Earl LeBlanc. Earl, are you here?
Oh, hello, yes, I am. Can you
Very
hear me?
good. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Again, my name is Earl, and I'm a member of the East York Acorn Group. And in the interest of brevity, I'll skip the Acorn intro and just go to why I was asked to share my experience. I'm very new to Acorn and whatnot. Actually, this is about my own personal renoviction. And that's how I got involved, just by coincidence with Acorn. So the story is I was living at 2901 St. Clair Avenue East in East York, and in the fall of 2019, we were given notice to move by December 1st and offered $8,000. The circumstances at the time where we were told it's going to be an extensive renovation, and there'd be a lot of dust and so on and so forth. And I wasn't prepared to live like that. I'm a senior. I'm 69 now, and I lived there for 9.5 years. So I decided to take the money and leave. And besides, they said if we don't take the money and leave by December 1st, it would be reduced to just 3 months if we were delayed. So there was like a veiled threat there as well. So I took it and then that's when things got interesting because I was having severe back problems at the time and had to pack up and move. I had a little help from family, but I didn't want to disrupt everyone's lives, so I decided to hire a mover. So that $8,000 quickly evaporated, and here's why. They took the last month's rent out. It was about $800 to move. Then the place I moved, I took a place because I was in shock because of the rent. I was suffering from rent shock. So I jumped at a place at $1,100 a month, which was a bit of quite an increase, but I took it anyway. Lo and behold, when I got there, the place needed all painting, repairs, and a bunch of junk left for me to move. So I did all that at another cost of $500 to $700, but it was not what I was used to. It was a tiny one-bedroom, and so that landlord offered me another apartment, fortunately, and so I moved there. So my present situation is this. I currently pay just in rent, $410 more per month. That is a huge increase. Then came heating was not included. Then came street parking. There's also the fact of being uprooted from an area that you get to know people, you make friends, you get to know, you know where your shops are, and so on and so forth. And plus, I'm not young anymore, so, it's a major hassle. So bottom line is I went from a nice, spacious one-bedroom apartment to a tiny one-bedroom. Fortunately, I could move to another unit. However, as it stands now, like I mentioned earlier, my total increase in costs has been 49.43% per month. And so it's not totally wrecked, but put a major dent in my retirement.
Yep.
Funds and so on, and I'm independent, so I'm not going to lean on family.
Okay.
So it's a huge blow.
Thank you, Earl.
And
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up, Earl.
Yes, no problem. I'm there now.
You're wrapped?
So thank you very much for listening to my story, and
thank you.
Good luck with getting all these changes in place. Thank you.
I let you go on a bit long because you had a personal renovation story. And I just wanted to ask you, what would have helped you when you got that? First of all, I'm sure it's quite shocking when you get an N13 or an N12. And then what would have helped you right away? If you'd had a place to call and say, what does this mean? Can you help me? What should I do? What are my options? Just looking back, tell me what you think would have been most helpful for you.
Well, in hindsight, thank you for asking. In hindsight, because there was a lot of talk in the building, in hindsight, there needed to be clarification first on what our rights were. Nobody really knew. There was mumblings and grumblings, and there were people in there far greater urgency than me, believe it or not. But yeah, someone to call, some guidelines, because in retrospect, I didn't know any of this. I didn't even know the term renoviction until my daughter told me what it meant. I mean, I'm not stupid. I know there's a housing crisis and so on in the city, but I didn't know the particulars, and all of that would have helped. Knowing, like, the first right of return, for example.
If you'd known that, if you'd known that, your right to return at basically the same rent, maybe just a little more, would you have acted differently?
Oh, totally, 100%. I wouldn't have moved if that was the case. Oh, absolutely.
Did everybody
You
move?
know, it was.
Did everybody move from your building, or did some people stay behind?
To the best of my knowledge, one lady stayed. It was a small 12 units, a small walk-up, like class vintage 50, you know, blonde brick building. There were only 12 units there.
And you think?
I believe one stayed. I don't know how, because there's new windows. They totally gutted it. And I saw the ad, and they're now charging $2,200 a month.
And what was your rent before, Bob? What was your rent?
$890. $890 per month, including heat, all utilities, and a 2-car garage to myself, as it couldn't quite fit 2 cars.
Okay, so that was now up to 22. So that's the Renovations. That's a very helpful story for everybody to hear, and why it's so important, Bob, to understand your right to return or your right to stay if the renovation or the renovation isn't something that is major. So thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry that happened to you and that you're paying 50% more than you were before. Okay, thanks, Bob. Thanks, Earl. I called you Bob. I'm sorry. It's Earl. Sorry, Earl. Okay, next up is Motion Abidi. Motion, are you here?
Yes.
Please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. We can.
Good evening, everybody. I'm also a member of Acorn, East York Chapter. Just a few short ideas on renovations. Renovations are a big issue for tenants because renovations have affected access to affordable housing in the city. Predatory landlords use renovations as an excuse to drive out long-term tenants and get around the city's rent increase guidelines. Many people in our community have been affected by sudden notice to vacate their unit. It is shocking to see that good tenants who have excellent payment records could be treated in this manner. Renovations often leave tenants out on a limb and drive up rents, making it difficult for them to find affordable accommodations at the same property or in the same community. Tenants are often forced to leave communities in which they have lived in for years and have established roots, and often have to move far away from their work, their friends, and important public facilities, which makes their lives harder. Landlords should be held accountable. Inadequate financial supports and tenant buyouts should not be used to shortchange tenants. The city should be more proactive. Since 2018, Toronto Acorn has been fighting for bylaws to be put in place in Toronto to stop renovations. We would like to see the city do the following. Developers must be required to obtain all renovation permits from the city so that only the needed renovations are permitted. In cases where tenants have to move out, the city must enforce the right to return and with comparable lease as before. Due to long waiting lists for rental properties in Toronto, tenants must be helped with finding temporary accommodation for the tenants during the renovation period. This must be enforced with fines. Acorn is also asking the city to stop approving building permits for such landlords that violate these laws, and preclusion from public funds for predatory landlords. We must also have a no displacements policy and use existing powers to create new tools to stop displacement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Motion. Next here up today is Karen Newman. Karen, are you on the line with us tonight?
Yes, I am.
Great. Please start.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Newman, and I'm a member of Acorn North. I live on 2 Torbolton Drive along with 19 other families, and we have been fighting an eviction since November of 2020. The new landlord, Michael Klein and Family Properties, purchased the 2 townhouse buildings. 2 days after purchasing the buildings, all families received letters of evictions wanting us out by March the 31st, 2021, and offering us $5,000 to leave. Most tenants have lived here from 6 to 43 years. Unit rents average from $1,000 to $1,600, and they are now charging $2,600. How can that be acceptable? This is not just here, but all over our city. Our closest neighborhood is made up of working-class families who still have affordable housing, but with these predatory landlords buying up these buildings, where are these families to go? We are losing more and more affordable housing when these landlords are allowed to use the excuse of renovictions in order to get lower-paying tenants out, then more than double the rents. We need to preserve affordable housing and keep these communities in place. That is what ACORN members are fighting for, non-displacement of families. Once a landlord does renovations, he should not be able to raise the rents more than 10%. And even 10% can be a hardship for some families. Landlords should also have to find temporary places for these families to live while the renovations take place, and no displacement policy has to be put in place for families. Affordable housing will disappear unless there are laws put in place to prevent these predatory landlords from renovating families for profit. Housing is a right for all families, and we need to put laws in place to keep housing affordable for everyone. This has been especially hard for me and my husband. We're both seniors, we're retired. This has been really bad on our nerves because we never knew from day to day what was actually happening around here. And all I can say is thank you to ACORN for stepping in and letting us know some of our rights. And I hope the city steps up and puts some of these laws into place to help all people keep affordable housing in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions of the deputant? Did you say that you were run-evicted?
Yes.
You were? And I'm just going to ask, pardon?
I am still in my apartment, but I received the renoviction notice, yes.
Oh, you haven't been run-evicted, you're staying, fighting it.
I'm staying so far, yes.
And
yes. I'm fighting it.
You're fighting it?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Okay, that's excellent. And you've got good information on how to do that, and you've got support, right?
Yes. Yes.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Good luck with that. Let me know how I can help.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, next is Mr. Abdullah Naqvi. Are you here, Abdullah?
Hi.
Abdullah?
I am.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Very good. Please, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you for listening. My name is Abdullah Naqvi. I'm a member of the downtown chapter of ACORN. ACORN kind of happened fortuitously in my life where I was going through a renoviction towards the end of last year. I think in October I received a renoviction notice, and luckily I'm still here. Luckily we had this very tenacious tenant here who's been here for 41 years, and he said we're not leaving. We got help from the downtown legal services through UFC. And we were able to stay. A lot of people leave just largely because I think the landlord has done enough to try to put us off and try to make us feel like we're not welcome here anymore. So I've been fortunate enough to stick around, but not everyone has the resources that we were able to access, and I think it's important that we allow people to make that fight a lot easier, right? As Earl mentioned, I mean that's not something that everybody has access to, and I'm very fortunate to be here still. Also, I think it's important to echo what Kiri said with regards to COVID showing faults in the system. But I mean, those faults have always been there, and I think it's important that if we are to make changes to renovations during this time, that they are long-lasting and they continue to be in place beyond this difficult time that we're living through at this time. And finally, one thing so we've had a few people mention the bylaw in New Westminster, but one thing that I didn't hear was this bylaw was actually upheld again at the end of April this year, which is, just a testament to how strong and how robust that bylaw is. So, I mean, it's not something that that happened 2 years ago. It's something that's still in place now, and it continues to be upheld against appeals. So, I really do advocate for something like that to happen, and I advocate for people to have an easier time when they're fighting against renovictions, and potentially, as people have mentioned, certain punishments for landlords that try to renovict people. And finally, one thing I will say is I've heard a lot about people being offered buyout money, which is kind of absurd, because if you're getting $8,000 in buyout money and you're increasing the cost of the unit by 100%, you're making that back in 6 to 8 months as a landlord. Meanwhile, that $8,000, is dissolves pretty quickly, as people have pointed out. So I just think it's important to point that out, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Abdullah, for being here tonight, telling us your story. I'm going to call next Helen Chillis. Helen, you're back. Welcome back.
Okay, I thought Jessica Bell was next.
Well, you're next.
Okay.
Good to go.
Anyways, I concur with everything that all the previous speakers have said. There needs to be a bylaw in place that protects all people from all renovictions. But I'm in a situation where we're doing renovictions in piecemeal. There are notices up on our building right now that say that we will be getting new elevators. They're going to be modernizing our 60-year-old elevators that entrap us, that don't open up doors, that bounce, that are quite frightening. And a lot of people, ever since COVID, and people have been home, they cannot believe that we are without water once a week. But that's okay with the city and MLS because repairs are needed.
This is about renovictions, if you don't mind, please, Helen. Helen, please address the item. Sorry, Helen. You have to talk about, Helen, you have to talk about renovictions. Thank you.
But I am talking about renovations.
No, you're talking about the elevators, so please focus on just what this title is today. Please, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Paula, okay, renovictions though. And the landlord will, in fact, as far as renovictions go, the registry, it is important that there is a registry put in place, but it should also have access to the amount of rent increases that we've been hearing. And that way we can determine exactly the cost of living in Toronto. And also going back to renovictions, if we did have a licensing landlord regime to license landlords, which, by the way, and I'm sure everyone on the call today doesn't even like the word landlord. I think we need to discuss perhaps a new terminology, such as a private rental provider. It is important that as much detail is available to help with those that are have been renovicted. And I have been renovicted in the past in a house. And when I went back to get something that I had completely forgotten in the garage, there were new tenants there. There were no renovations made. The rent had gone up by about 50%. And that was about 10 years ago, before we even knew of the word renovictions. So I have been there. I have dealt with it. I know how stressful it can be. And it is targeting older buildings and seniors, families, immigrants, and the disabled. And people have nowhere to go. So I'm hoping that this city today will take a proactive step and put something forward that will be tangible to save housing in Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing your story with us tonight, Helen. It's much appreciated. Next up is Jessica Bell, MPP Jessica Bell. Are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed. Thank you.
Amazing. Hey, okay, great. I'm Jessica Bell. I'm the Ontario NDP's housing critic. I happen to live in a building under the Rent Safe program. So it was very interesting to hear about people talk about their experience with Rent Safe. They seem to be very good at identifying the problem, but not so great on enforcement. I'm here to talk about the issue of rent evictions. It's a huge issue in University Rosedale. We get lots of calls from people who are being evicted and who are fighting evictions, from teachers to students. I have proposed changes to the Residential Tenancies Act to stop the rise in illegal evictions, including government tracking of evictions and enforcement of illegal evictions. Doug Ford's our premier, so the fight's going to take all of us. I have some recommendations for this committee. One is please bring a version of the new Westminster Bill to Toronto. Whatever you can find that's legally possible for us to do here is going to be a good thing. I like that the bill applies to all rental units. It makes a lot of sense to have landlords prove to the city that the renovations made that they're proposing to make to the building are necessary for a tenant to leave. And that's because we get a lot of calls from tenants who have landlords that are wanting to do superficial renovations that they don't think require them moving out, but they often get pushed out anyway. It makes a lot of sense for the landlord to provide alternative accommodation to the tenant, which is in the new Westminster Bill. And the reason why is because it reduces the incentive to legally evict, and it also reduces the incentive to drag out renovations and make them as painful as possible, which is a tactic that landlords do. We're seeing it at University Rosedale, 666 Spadina. It's a very large building in our riding, has, from anecdotal reports from the Tenants Association there, they have had 90% of their tenants move out because the landlord just keeps on dragging out the renovations, which is a huge problem. And then the bylaw is backed up by fines and the threat of having their business license revoked. And it seems that it works, which is key. When we've looked at the bill, the number of renovictions in Westminster has dropped from 333 over the 3 years prior to this bill, and now it's gone down to 0. So if it can work there, it can work here. There's two other things I just want to conclude with. One is every time the City of Toronto passes a motion, I get a letter in my inbox and telling me what you're recommending the province do. So I fully encourage you to continue doing that and pass motions that tackle rent evictions. We are in support of ending vacancy decontrol and moving to a vacancy control measure, which would reduce the incentive for landlords to illegally evict or evict because there'd be a cap on how much the rent could be raised after the tenant leaves. If the City of Toronto was all open in supporting vacancy control, that would be amazing. And then finally, I'm getting a lot of calls from tenants who are facing a situation where they're being illegally locked out. When you go to the government's website, it says call the police if you're in that situation. But when we call the police or the tenant calls the police don't help. And it'd be good if this subcommittee, maybe on another day or another month, would look into why that is happening. I think that would really help tenants too. Thank you for your work and thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Ms. Bell, MPP Bell? No, I would just ask you a couple things. One is the issue with tenants not getting, being told to call the police and then not getting a response if they're locked out by the landlord. I appreciate it if you'd send us a letter to the members of this committee.
I would love to.
And let us know about that, which we can forward.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two, I know you have some research capacity. Would you be available or willing to lend some help to research the new Westminster bylaw and the possibilities for application here in Toronto? Because there are some differences legally between BC and Ontario. I don't think BC can just take and cut the Vancouver City Council in the same way that the Premier can in Ontario. But that would be helpful if you had anything like that, Jessica. That would
Paula,
say-
I agree.
Pardon?
Yes, there is a need to look at how this law can be applied in Toronto. We have different rules than BC. I can ask legislative research if they've got the capacity to do it, and I can send it to the city and you.
That would be very helpful. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions, other questions for Jessica? Well, thank you very much for coming tonight, and I think you've heard a lot of very compelling things, which you may hear regularly, but we have heard many, many compelling stories tonight from so many people that took the time out to come and speak to us with their ideas, with their personal stories, with their recommendations, with their experiences. It was extremely powerful, and I just want to thank everybody for doing that. And as we try to figure out how to maintain affordable housing in the city, stop the rent evictions in the city, and looking at the BC New Westminster model and what's possible to take from that and how closely we could do something that would be the equivalent here in Toronto. And I appreciate you, Jessica Bell, I'm sure you're still listening, for assisting, saying you can assist with some research, and I think there are others as well that will do that. So I'm going to just bring this into committee for item number RH 5.3. Any questions for staff on this one? No? Any speeches on this one? Committee members? Councillor Perks? No? This is not like you, Councillor Perks. You're so quiet. It's not like him, is it? All you folks watching. That's fine. I do have some motions. I know that shouldn't surprise anybody, a little speech. So here they are. The Renovations policy, the Planning and Housing Committee, because this is going to go there on June the 28th, direct staff to report to a December meeting of the subcommittee or sooner to the Planning and Housing Committee. So in other words, we can jump ahead with the proposed renovations policy and accompanying procedures for consideration, having regard for best practices from other jurisdictions as applicable, and provide an interim report on those best practices to the Planning and Housing Committee in the fall of 2021. Second, that we request that the Planning and Housing Committee request the Executive Director Housing Secretariat to continue to work to strengthen interim eviction prevention measures, including considering expediting the creation of the housing at risk table, that's in the report, discussed in the report, to develop tools to monitor the volume and nature of evictions and provide an update to the Planning and Housing Committee on September 21st, 2021. And lastly, the Planning and Housing Committee requests the Executive Director, Housing Secretariat, City Solicitor, in consultation with the Chair, Subcommittee on the Protection of Affordable Rental Housing, to invite legal aid clinics and others in the legal profession working on tenant eviction prevention to a meeting to discuss how the new Westminster, British Columbia bylaw addressing rent evictions might be adapted for Toronto, and established from that a working group to provide advice to the city to that end. So those are all motions coming out of this report. And I think that tonight, well, we know the issue of rent evictions is still so on the table. We do know that coming out of the pandemic, there's going to be tremendous pressure on the rental housing market, and that means on tenants. And I think I was very struck with Earl's story tonight about getting the notice and not really knowing where to turn. And not knowing his rights, not knowing that he could stay, not knowing that there's a whole number of things that could happen. But the onus is always on the tenant to do that. And I think with the rent evictions bylaw, that the onus then goes on the landlord to do things properly, to renovate properly, and not to simply use that to evict people in order to double and triple the rent. So really looking forward to digging a little deeper into the rent evictions and getting this moving quickly. I know staff are as well. They're doing a lot in this in our staff level, but this was really set up out of the rent evictions and looking to ways to prevent them, to help people that are being rent evicted, and now with the much talked about new Westminster bylaw to look at a more structural approach to preventing renovictions from the side of the city in using whatever tools we have. So I'm very pleased that this report was here tonight. I'm super pleased that everybody came to speak and let us know what an important issue this is for themselves, for their families, and for the whole renting community across the city of Toronto. So that, I'm moving those motions, and thank everybody for that. And I'm just going to take a small time out while I get my instructions from our clerk. I just have an amendment here. Okay, maybe you could just put that one up. That's fine. It's taking out the city solicitor. We can't direct the city solicitor. And that's fine. That's fine. This just makes it a little more legal. We didn't know we were a little illegal, but we're fixing it. Thank you. We'll just take a second. Oh, sorry, Nancy. Brad, what's that picture behind you? I think everybody wants to know what that is. We know what Gord's is, it's elephants, but I can't tell what yours is. And giraffes.
Okay, just had to phone a friend, ask the audience. Museum of Modern Art in Rio de Janeiro, I'm told. Never been, but that's what it is.
Wow. It's very modern.
Fancy.
Do you think elephants and giraffes stay that close together, Gord? That's my question. It's a serious one. We're just getting these just corrected so we don't make a big legal boo-boo. And I just want to thank particular Acorn tonight for all of their incredible advocacy, all their members who are speaking out so thoughtfully and giving leadership, and also to MPP Bell. We don't often get MPPs coming to our committees, and it was very impressive that she decided to spend some time with us tonight. I know she's heard many of those stories, but it would be great to have her her assistance on this, because it's one of her big files. Okay, we are back on with item recommendation number 3 having been fixed to keep Councillor Perks out of jail. We don't want you having to go there over bad motion, Gord. So
has been busy at that for years.
So this has now been fixed to meet everybody's satisfaction. So you see the motions in front of you. I'm going to ask if we can have, correct? Going to vote on this now, Nancy? Yes. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. I think that concludes our business tonight at this meeting. Again, thank you to Councillors Perks and Bradford for being great members of this committee, for all of the public that came to speak to us tonight, to all the staff that are working on housing. I think one of the most important issues of our day, we all realize that, whether building it, saving it, keeping people in their homes, stopping evictions and renovations. It's a massive amount of work. Thank you. And of course, to our city clerks and other staff here tonight, keeping the meeting rolling. Thanks very much and good night. Till the next time. Bye.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, staff.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.